In a game where the New York Mets lost by 1 run, Starling Marte came up with the bases loaded twice late. He failed in each opportunity, and his struggles this season have been a microcosm of everything that has gone wrong with the Mets. We'll be discussing it on today's edition of Locked On Mets.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Now, we already knew the Mets would not win a series this month, as they lost 2 of the first 3 games in this series, ensuring that the best they could do was get a split. But you look at the entire month, there was only one series the Mets didn't lose. A 2-game set against the New York Yankees. It's the only series this month they did not lose. They've been awful. What is it? 16 of the last 24 games they've lost. This has been one of the worst months in Mets franchise history. It's just been awful. And what's more frustrating than anything is the last 2 games, all it would have taken was a little more offense. Couple things to go the Mets' way. And they could have won them. And they could have won a series. And they could have tried to build some momentum. When you look at the direction that the Mets are going, and if you didn't listen to yesterday's show on Steve Cohen's press conference, I do encourage you to do so, because it really does give you a full scope of everything going on with this franchise right now, this season, and how things can really end up breaking throughout this year and then in the future. And the fact that they are very close to being a extraordinarily fascinating seller. And we'll be covering that over the next month if that continues to prove to be a reality. But this team and this owner does not want to sell. And all he's looking for is a glimmer of hope for the Mets to get within 5 games of a wild card chase, to at least stand pat, if not even maybe be stupid enough to add. Okay? And they can't win baseball games. And this one on Thursday, you had the right guy on the mound, Max Scherzer. You got a little bit of run support for him, 3rd inning. Back-to-back homers, Beatty and Nimmo. And Nimmo, by the way, he deserves a lot of credit. He's putting together a fantastic first season on that contract. Might have been the best deal the Mets signed this offseason, quite honestly. He has been spectacular. And if this team was doing better, today's show would be about him being awesome instead of Starling Marte being horrible. But based on the context of the game and the season, I chose to go the Starling Marte route. We'll be talking about him at length in the next segment here. But you get some home runs, and Scherzer looked good. I mean, yes, he gave up 7 hits, but it was really only 1 inning where he gives up some runs. That 6th inning, his last inning of work. He gives up a home run. If he doesn't give up a home run, hey, things are different. He had 9 strikeouts in this one. It was a good start, not a great start. And the Mets needed greatness. They needed 7 shutout, or they at least needed 6. And they didn't get it, and really that's it. That's ball game, because the offense couldn't put up anything. They could not score beyond that 3rd inning, where they got a home run from Brett Beatty and 1 from Nimmo, who's at 11 on the year, by the way, and might hit 20 home runs for, I think, the first time of his career, if I'm not mistaken. He's trending in that direction, which is pretty awesome to see. But yeah, it's also Victor Carantini that hits the home run, by the way, for the Brewers, which is just ridiculous. I want to see what Carantini's done this year. He does have 4 home runs and 717 OPS, but not a guy you typically fear with the home run ball too much. So it is what it is, man. It's one of those seasons. Scherzer's been killed by the home run ball. That one gets him. 7th inning, you go to TJ McFarland. And look, I'm not even going to criticize the bullpen management. I'm not going to do that, but it says a lot when you have to go to TJ McFarland, and when he doesn't get the job done, you go to Dominic Leone. It says all you need to know, right? And that combination gives up a run. You get to the 8th inning, and suddenly it's Drew Smith pitching, and you see David Robertson in this game. But at that point, the game was lost. And you look at some of the things that happened late, and I think there's one clear managerial decision that I'd still like to talk about. It's getting a lot of traction on social media, particularly a tweet that I sent out. 8th inning or 7th inning, excuse me. Mark Canha gets a hit. Francisco Alvarez flies out, and Brett Beatty's spot comes up. Now it is a side tossing lefty and Hobie Milner, but the Mets go Danny Mendick over Brett Beatty in that spot. I'm looking at my phone here to find the stats that I tweeted out. AAA this year, I've spoken about this before, reverse splits for Mendick when the Mets promoted him. He had a 656 OPS against left-handed pitching. I think it was in the mid to high 700s against righties. Brett Beatty this year has a sub 700 OPS against righties and a 742 OPS against lefties at the big league level. For whatever it's worth, he has seen left-handed pitching better than righties. And yet he gets pinch hit for in these spots. And with Danny Mendick, it doesn't make sense to me. If you were to tell me that you're at a point in your season where you're fighting for your life and you have Eduardo Escobar, at least I could stomach that one. A guy that has, traditional splits where he's a switch hitter who swings it better from the right side, fine. But Danny Mendick, who granted was great against lefties last season with the White Sox, but this year has not shown that ability, who's still not even proven he's like a bona fide major league bat even, right? He's kind of a 4A player, guy that goes up and down. You're going to him instead of the kid that hit a home run earlier in the game. And it comes back to bite you because then you turn back around later in the 9th inning, and who's got to take a crucial at bat against Devin Williams? Louis Guillorme to pinch hit for Danny Mendick, who would have been lost in that matchup. I almost forgot about it. And so that inning starts off in the 9th. You have Mark Canha draws a walk with 1 out because Jeff McNeil flew out to start things off. Francisco Alvarez gets a sharp single. You're like, all right, Beatty's up. And then you remember, oh, no, it's not. It's Mendick. And then, here comes Guillorme, and he grounds out. And Brandon Nimmo is the guy that the Brewers didn't want to face. And they, pitched around him. And, literally, I'm looking at the pitch chart. They did not throw him a single pitch in the zone. They got one called strike on one that was definitely inside. Bad call. Nimmo swung at one. He fouled one off with the full count. And he drew a walk. And that led to the bases loaded with Starling Marte. And that's the other guy to look at here because he had 2 bases loaded opportunities. He had one for the Mets in the 7th inning after the Mendick situation. So Mendick came up. Yeah, Canha on. He hits one. It's an error by Brian Anderson. Yes, he got on base, but it was an error. Canha goes to third. Brandon Nimmo falls behind an account, gets hit by a pitch, loads the bases with 1 out. The only thing you can't have is a ground ball. You're in that spot, losing by a run. You just need a fly ball. Starling Marte hits into a double play ball. And then the 9th inning, when he's in that opportunity again, it's about as bad of an at bat as you can see. First pitch, change up, way out of the zone, swings right through it. Second pitch, change up in the zone, fouls it off. Third pitch, change up, way out of the zone, swings through it. 3 swings, 3 strikes, out, end of the ball game. His regression has been a microcosm of this season. It just has been. Starling Marte is hitting 253 this year. He's a 634 OPS. Next segment, I'm going to talk about it. If I can pinpoint why he's been so bad and what the Mets do with him moving forward. Before we get to that, though, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right, just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's 200 you can spend betting on everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think is going to hit that first home run of the game. You can also bet first fives. You can bet strikeouts. You can do a same-game parlay where maybe you say, look, Justin Verlander is going to strike out over 5.5, and I believe that Francisco Lindor might get over 1.5 bases, and the Mets might win one. And you put it all together, and you get some crazy odds for it, and you take a small bet and you cash out big time. All of this on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, an official partner of Major League Baseball. The New York Mets play the San Francisco Giants at 7:10 Eastern Time tonight. Catch every pitch. Mets hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Mets. Looking at Starling Marte's numbers this season, it is kind of puzzling that he has been as bad as he has. There's not a lot that's drastic. When you see a guy struggling to this extent on the statistical level, and we'll go through that right now. Last year, you look at what Starling Marte did in an all-star season for the Mets, and he was fantastic. He hit 292, 347 on base, 468 slug, 136 weighted runs created plus. Again, that measures hitters based on a league average of 100. So a 136 WRC plus means he was 36 points better than your league average hitter. You look at 16 home runs, okay? He scored 76. He drove in 63. He swiped 18 bases. And that's one department he's improved this year with the new stolen base rules. He's at 21 stolen bases, but he's hitting 254, 307 on base, 331 slug. So you see a 40-point dip about in the batting average, which coincides with the on-base percentage. And the slug has dipped 130 points, actually more than that. He has just 4 home runs through 74 games. Last year was the 16 and 118. And you look at the doubles last year, 24 doubles, 5 triples. This year, 7 doubles, 1 triple. And you're only working with a sample size that's, it's less than 200 plate appearance difference now. It's 466. Actually, it was 505 at bat, or plate appearance, 466 at bats. This year, he's at 295 plate appearances, 272 at bats. Bottom line, he is 210 plate appearances away with less than a third of the amount of extra base hits as he had last season. I mean, significantly less. So that's it for him. He has not hit for extra bases. And I look at the numbers on him and it doesn't entirely make sense. I mean, the max exit velocity is down, right? But that doesn't tell the full story, right? Like, how hard is he hitting the baseball? Yes, last year he hit 113.3 miles per hour. This year, 110.9. But that doesn't tell you, oh, that's definitely why he's struggling. You have to look at average exit velocity. His average exit velocity is up. You look at his hard hit percentage, it's up. You look at his expected batting average. Last year, 276. This year, his expected batting average, 273. His expected slug last year was 428. This year, 417. Something's not adding up. The barrel percentage, not drastically different. You look at each individual pitch, like, is he struggling on fastballs significantly more? Yes, a little bit. Last year, he hit 329 against fastballs. This year, it's 278. But that's not a drastic shift. Here's one. He's whiffing on breaking pitches nearly 40% of the time. Last year, that was 27.8% of the time. And he's chasing more. So that's part of it. But the biggest thing I actually think is the speed. His sprint speed is down this year. He's not getting out of the box quick. He's struggling in the outfield, too. He is in the 3rd percentile, now it's above average. It means he is among the worst fielders in baseball this year. And the eye test doesn't always really back that up, but there's probably balls that he's not getting to that we're not really realizing. His jumps have been terrible compared to last year where he was better. I don't know if he's hurt. It certainly looks like it. And if that's the case and he's playing through an injury, get him out of there, because guess what? Mark Canha does not look hurt. Mark Canha, I think he'd give you some better at-bats with consistent playing time, and Tommy Pham surely has earned that everyday role that he's now entrenched in. And for what it's worth, you could absolutely, put Marte on the IL, shift Jeff McNeil into the outfield, and play Ron Mauricio if you really wanted to. But at this point, they're not doing that. And it's one of those things where maybe he's playing through something. But you can't tell him not to, and he's a guy that's on a contract. And I don't know. Here's one other thing: can you get him out of the 2-hole? That for me is pretty clear cut. This year, batting second, he's hitting 217, 284 on base, 286 slug. In the 5-hole, he's batting 308. It's 308 on base, 308 slug. It's all singles, but it's still better. And in the 6-hole, he's hitting 299, 340 on base, 392 slug. None of the numbers are good. His one game, maybe it was in the 7-hole, he is hitting 1,000. I don't know if that was a pinch hitting opportunity or what that was. Let's see. Yeah, it was a pinch hitting. So he got a double in a pinch hit spot in the 7-hole at some point. But again, hitting low in the lineup was treating him a little bit kinder, and you don't have him in those spots like he was tonight, front and center, where you couldn't get to Lindor or Alonso because there he is. And I get it. Jeff McNeil struggling too. How do you construct this lineup? If anything, just go Nimmo, Lindor, Alonso, or really change it up. Maybe you bat Lindor lead off and you go. Honestly, it wouldn't even be crazy to me to go Lindor, Alonso, Nimmo. Like, that wouldn't even be shocking. I know they paid Nimmo to be the leadoff man, but there is part of me that says, like, Nimmo's the only guy hitting, and maybe he's the one guy that can back up Alonso. Tommy Pham, too. Tommy Pham has insurance for Alonso is fine, but maybe that's it. Maybe it's Nimmo, Lindor, Alonso, Pham, and you just banish McNeil and Marte lower into the lineup because that's where their play warrants. But you look at this season and you look at the guys that haven't shown up on contracts, man, Starling Marte is on the top of the list. And I do wonder if there would be a market for him at the trade deadline. Not because he's been good this year, but because he has a track record. And are there a couple teams out there that if you ate the salary, they'd be interested in? The main one that I look at is the Marlins. That's a team that traded for Starling Marte once, and he was exceptional at getting to the playoffs. I think I did mention this on yesterday's show as well. But, like, would you get to a point where you take bad money for bad money? What if you could get off the Marte contract entirely for Avisail Garcia? As bad as that would be to acquire him. I mean, he's a guy that's hurt. But you would basically take on Garcia to essentially understand that you're going to swallow the contract, but it's a lesser contract to swallow, and you get Marte off the books. It's crazy because you thought Marte was going to be a really good player for you, and I thought this was actually going to be his best season on the contract. So I was absolutely dead wrong on that, but I compared it to Curtis Granderson. I always saw that comp. And Granderson's second year with the Mets was his best one, 2015. He was the best position player on that team. If you look at the statistics, he even had as good, if not better numbers in the second half than Yoenis Cespedes, which is stunning. It really is. And Grandy, man, was great in the playoffs as well in his age 34 season. Here's Marte's age 34 season. It's been a disaster. What's it going to look like in age 35 and age 36? I don't know. And again, the only reason why I mentioned the Marlins, I think it's the one team that could talk themselves into it. But man, you look at what he is doing right now, he's killing you. And you got to wonder, is he going to break out of it, or is this just going to end with a season where they keep running him out there? Or do they get to a point where they shut him down and he has some type of a surgery that we're not even understanding that he needs at this point, and they play the kids at some point this season? Because if that's where you're ultimately going to go, maybe you should just put him on the IL sooner than later, because what we're seeing is just not the same guy. I mean, again, the slug to drop 130 points, that's shocking. One player who is slugging a lot more, though, It's JD Davis. What's going on there? The Mets are about to see him up close and personal, and I fear a massive series from JD Davis and Michael Conforto on this upstart Giants team that's finding a way to be in the mix. A lot more than the Mets have, certainly. JD Davis, hate to say it, he's been the best third baseman in the National League this year. We'll talk about it next. Quick, another word from our sponsors. The New York Mets played JD Davis and the San Francisco Giants on Friday night. Catch every pitch of the Mets hometown broadcast, Sirius XM on the SXM app. Just search Mets. Looking at JD Davis's stats, last year with the New York Mets, Davis hit 238, 324 on base, 359 slug. In 49 games with the Giants after trading him for Darren Ruff, and the Mets sent 3 pitching prospects with him to get Darren Ruff. He hit 263, 361 on base, 496 slug, had 8 home runs in 49 games, put up a 142 weighted runs created plus, meaning he was 42% better than your league average hitter. This season, JD Davis hitting 289, 367 on base, 467 slug, 10 home runs, 44 RBIs, 130 WRC plus, playing every day for that Giants team. And here is the maddening statistic for me. I watched every game of JD Davis' career with the Mets. He was, from my eye test, the worst third baseman I've ever seen. Awful. And the stats backed it up. He was just simply atrocious defensively. You look at defensive runs saved in a Mets uniform at third base, -9, -8 in a 269 inning sample size in 2020. It was -9 in a 220 inning sample size, -7 last year. Actually, -7 in 2021. Excuse me. Last year it was -1. I'm sure it was, -1 for the Mets, 0 for the Giants. You look at his outs above average at third base in a Mets uniform, -1, -4, -3, -3. Last year, it was actually -1 with the Mets, -2 with the Giants. So again, not good. This year, he is, based on defensive run save, -3. But he's +6 outs above average. He's in the 96th percentile in defense and outs above average this year, which is stunning that he's figured that out. He's cut down his strikeouts significantly the last 2 years. It was over 30%. This year, it's at 26.4%. He's just been a great player. And you look at National League third baseman, and I can't believe that I am saying this, and I actually did assign an article to one of our writers of Just Baseball this week on JD Davis, which is live on the site, and how he's been the best third baseman in the National League. He's leading the NL among third basemen in average, in on base percentage, in weighted runs created plus, and outside of Candelario for the Nationals in WAR at 2. It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts how good he's been. But JD Davis has been awesome, and there's every chance that he has a great series and a revenge one at Citi Field against this Mets team. Now, also you have Michael Conforto, who has come on as of late. His overall stats don't jump off the page. They're actually pretty similar to what he did in his last year with the Mets. Just a 108 WRC plus compared to a 106 with the Mets. So, just 8% better than league average. But he had a rough first month. Really took him some time to get his feet wet, as he was out of baseball for a full season. He's got 12 home runs on the year and 42 runs driven in. So Michael Conforto has been pretty good. I mean, on the Mets, Michael Conforto might be their best outfielder, not named Tommy Pham. But there you go. The Giants, they are 45 and 36. The Mets have the inverse record, 36 and 45. And you got Carlos Carrasco on the mound, game 1, 6.19 ERA. The season going up against Alex Cobb, who's been fantastic for them this year, 3.09 ERA. Then it's Anthony DeSclafani, 4.28 ERA on the year, going up against Justin Verlander, 4.11. Then David Peterson will try to do it again. 7 ERA in the season. He cut it by a full run last start out. The Giants have not announced a starter on Sunday, but they're flatly a better baseball team, significantly better. And the Mets are rolling out Carrasco and Peterson in this series. So when exactly does this team turn it around? I think there's every chance that this is just going to be a horrific season. It already is. And maybe I'm trying to reverse jinx it here, but I don't see how they win a series. They're going to finally win one now. And then after that, they have a day off and then they go to Arizona and play a great baseball team who's just, been one of the best stories in the National League this year. In direct contrast to the Mets, it doesn't seem like there's a point, and you look at what they have leading into this deadline where they're going to be able to turn around. I mean, they have just the stink off against the Padres after that next weekend. And then they got the Dodgers coming out of the All-Star break. So, I do see a little bit of a open pathway when you look at the end of the month, but you can't even schedule, planned wins when you have a team as bad as the Mets. So we'll see. We'll see if they can win a series because they haven't won one since they swept the Phillies, which was the end of May leading into the first game of June. It's the last time they swept a series. They've just been awful. So let's see them do it. Let's see them with Carlos Carrasco and David Peterson sandwiching Justin Verlander find a way to win a series. And we'll see if they can shock us all and do it 2 times in a row and have a good week of Mets baseball for once. I'm excited we're at the weekend. I think I will take a full weekend off for all you everydayers. So you'll check in on me on Monday. I'll be back with another episode for you all. So make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Follow me on Twitter, Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. And if you want to catch every pitch of the Mets hometown broadcast this weekend, you can do so with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Mets.